Hello, folks. I'm your host, Craig T. Stewart, and I'm here with...
Jeff Mayhew.
Oh, there he is. I thought we lost him for a second. And this is another episode of What the Book. Hey, Jeff. What's the book?
Mere Christianity
By C.S. Lewis.
by C.S. Lewis.
I like that voice. But I don't know if it's philosophical enough. Maybe it's a highly pragmatic voice, though.
Yeah.
Well, in case you couldn't tell, this is a philosophy book that we're doing this month. And yeah. Good idea. We should probably show it off a little bit. Before we dive into it, there's 4 different books that are compiled of essays that C.S. Lewis wrote, and so we're going to have 4 main themes. Before we get there, there's a book synopsis, and it is this. A classic work of Christian apologetics, Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis is an amalgamation from his BBC radio broadcast that presents clear, rational cases for core or mere beliefs shared across all Christian denominations. His words avoid denominational specifics to establish the existence of an objective moral law evident in human nature.
Lewis argues this evidence points to a personal God behind the universe and supports this claim through mere Christian doctrines, including God's invasion of the fallen world through Christ, who is Lord, not a mere moral teacher, the necessity of atonement for sin, and the process of becoming a new creation in Christ through faith and grace.
We made it through. No words tripped us up.
Amalgamation.
There's a reason I took the first paragraph, folks. Some themes from this book, like I said, there's 4 different subsections or books. The first one is like right and wrong as clues to the meaning of the universe. The second one is what Christians believe. The third is Christian behavior. And the last one is beyond personality or just beyond the self and tying everything together. So those are the high-level themes that we're going to be going through in this episode. But Jeff, what'd you think of the book?
I freaking loved it. I thought it was fantastic. I think the way that C.S. Lewis articulates the Christian religion or the Christian's beliefs here is something that I really relate to as somebody who, like Lewis, did not grow up Christian. I became Christian later in life in my late 30s, and the way that he describes like becoming a Christian and like the steps that you take to be more like Christ day in and day out, and kind of the steps and regressions that you find, like even when he talks about, like not going to church on a regular basis, eventually you might just fall out with Christ. You don't just stop believing. It's you separate yourself from Christ.
Can confirm.
Yeah. And
been there, done that.
I very much you don't have to agree with it. You feel it, and you're like, it is the path that you walk as a Christian, and like everything about it is so remarkably true. And then it's like, well, that is the truth, right? But I loved it. I loved it. I thought it was great. I reached out to a few people who I know or thought had read it. A couple of people said they weren't a fan of Lewis's writing, which surprised me. And I know it. I thought it's very conversational. Obviously, it is a conversation. It was a radio broadcast at some point in time.
His writing for this book or for just his writing in general?
Well, I didn't get specifics when I was asking questions, but the reference was in response to this specific book. So I took it to mean this specific book, but they could mean all of his writing. I don't know.
Yeah. I first listened to this book a few years ago because it took my mother a year to read this book. And
That's
she's like, "You
crazy.
would probably like this book." And I think it was about the same time that our podcast for Søren Kierkegaard came out.
That
Um,
was a much harder read than this. Like, I
yeah,
let's
yeah,
be real. Which, by the way, Fear and Trembling. But go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
yeah. Fear and Trembling. That is mentioned in this book. I wrote it down. Just saying. I love the fact that it's there. It ties things between books. But I listened to it and I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back and reread this book. Like actually buy it and sit down and read it because I I read the Chronicles of Narnia growing up. They're great growing up, but in hindsight, C.S. Lewis didn't come off as an exceptional writer or thinker. Having read this twice now, it's like, yeah, there's some issues with his writing style in the modern era, but man, does it have some good information in there. It can cut pretty deep if you let it. And it's to, like we said, it's a radio broadcast. For a lot of this are just essays in general, reworked to be essays, if nothing else. So there's that conversational uh, aspect that is captured that absolutely helps it, I think.
I think that's what makes it really good because the way that I think about, the relationship that I have with God and the way that Lewis kind of describes the Holy Trinity and he talks about the Holy Ghost and that as the one that kind of lives inside you. And,
Yeah, the
you
third
know,
dimension.
when you're praying, you're talking to God. You're having a conversation with God, right? Like you're praying to God. You're laying out who you want to be, who you're asking God to help make you be. And then God is giving you that strength and that power to go out and be that thing. And it's a conversation that you have, right? And I think, the style and the tone of the way that Lewis wrote it fits, that. So I very much enjoyed the book. It is so I'll say, I know your mom took a year. It didn't take me a year to read this book. That's crazy, by the way. Feel free to drop a comment in complaining. Um, but I it took me over a week to read this, and I typically binge our books. I am a book binger. I like to carve out, like a
Yeah.
Saturday and like knock out the whole book. For something this size, I typically would. However, I did not binge this book. I read it piece by piece. I could not binge it. I found myself thinking so much by time I got to like the fourth chapter that I had to put the book down, and that is a rarity for me. I I guess I'm the type of person I can think and continue to read pretty well throughout the book and hold, two different lines of thought as I'm doing it, and that helps me retain information. But for this one, my thoughts overtook me as I was reading, and I found myself not being able to read. So it was definitely a rarity. It's not the only book that's ever done that to me, but it is one of
Yeah.
one of the ones we've read that's done it to me.
Yeah. As I was saying before we got started, like I was reading this in pieces while making breakfast in the morning. So I was listening and I had it there and highlighting along the way. And then I would like eat, think about it, get in the car, think about it for a few minutes, like by the time I get on the highway or something. So you've got 10 to 15 minutes that I'm still processing the information, just thinking about it differently. Cause like I've thought about most of what C.S. Lewis is talking about, and I've read other books that touch on it, but this is a different perspective because most of those books come from a completely Gnostic perspective, or I'm sorry, agnostic perspective, or a completely like Christian apologetics perspective. It's not someone like in your circumstance or in C.S. Lewis's circumstance where you're moving towards this thing that you didn't necessarily have in your life before and processing it from that. It's the same way where it's like I'm a native English speaker. If someone else learns the language, they're going to see it differently. They're going to approach it differently.
Mm.
And this vice versa, like when I pick up a second or third language. When, not if.
Win. All right,
It
well,
shall be.
let's get to it. Let's get right to it. What do you want to
All
talk
right.
about first?
Book one, you want to ask the question?
I do. I very much do. As soon as I can find it. Hold on. What does the universal moral law we all sense point to God behind the universe? And why does it leave us so uneasy?
The universal law that we recognize, we always have failed to adhere to it. It's that gut feeling where you know that what you're about to do is wrong, or your gut's telling you you should do this thing. Like, I don't know, stop and talk to that person that looks like they're having a bad time. We just fail to adhere to it. But it's that gut instinct that leads the clues along what's right and wrong. And when you follow that, you'll find that you align a lot with Christian doctrine just by actions, even if you're not necessarily a Christian. And that points to a objectively perfect being that might contrast our own moral failures, but it may also just point to uh, objective morality in general. And that's a common theme in this book where it goes back and forth like, is Christ a moral teacher or is he the Son of God? And Christian apologetics is very clear on this. He is the Son of God. And if you don't believe that, then you're not actually adhering to Christian doctrine. But in order to get there, you have to take the steps. And one of them is that first one. Like, is there a universal moral law? Did I answer it correctly?
No, no, I'm kidding.
Oh
Um,
dear.
so yeah, he is the Son of God, and he's also the greatest moral teacher. Because he taught us how to be in with him and Christ.
Mm.
So
Not merely a moral teacher, but something more.
correct. But that also makes him the best moral teacher. And, Lewis references some other great moral teachers in the book, Aristotle. Um,
Buddha,
this-
I think.
I think, but in a different section than I'm referring to in this one. Hi, Cat. Um, and but so I think it's important to recognize that, it's like even Lewis is like, if you followed other moral teachers, you probably end up with I mean, he doesn't say this directly, but you probably end up with a pretty decent world. However, Jesus is the Son of God. He is God, and he is the best because of that, because he is the perfect being. And it's not just through his words, but his actions that
Mhm.
allow us to see truly what that moral law is. And I think that's important, and I believe Lewis references when he's talking about a mother teaching their child how to, I believe it's right, or talk. You talk to your child even though it doesn't know. You act out how you want your child to behave. You tell them what to do and how to do it and why and all those things, but you also
Yep.
show them with your actions. And I think that's really important. And I think that's pretty standard across, when you go to church, you hear that a lot. It's like you gotta talk to talk, but you gotta walk the walk, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's the key, is
Lead by
walking the walk.
example,
And that's what
walk the
uh,
walk. Yeah.
yeah, and only the Son of God, right? Only God could lead the perfect example to help us
Mhm.
get closer, you know?
Yeah. I, I honestly think we covered that one pretty good, but I think there's a follow-up question. How does our instinct to quarrel over fairness prove there's an objective moral law?
Mm,
And the follow-up to that would be, why can't we just blame it on nature or nurture?
that's a good question. For the first part would be, I mean, I think the way that Lewis describes this is that, you have a desire for things, and these desires are fulfilled. God fulfills these desires on earth. You have a desire to eat. Well, guess what? There is food to eat. You have a
Yep.
desire. You have a desire for sex, and guess what? There is sex to be had. Right? It is what continues
Yep.
life. And so, you know, what this is teaching us is that it's not that our desires are bad. It's that when they overtake us, that is kind of where we fall off the path. And I think, to this point about, you know, that instinct over fairness is we have a desire to make everything perfect, you know? And we that desire will be fulfilled when it comes time in God's kingdom, but, I think sometimes, when that desire overtakes us, that's where the quarreling begins because then it becomes a battle for control over actual fairness, and that is not we are not God gave us free will to make our own decisions, but
Yeah.
we're still living in his world, you know?
Yeah. I look at it as like it becomes that quarrel over fairness, but like what's the word? It's that internal struggle between desire, want, need. Like, I want to eat all this extra food. There's
Mm.
consequences to that. But are they as bad as saying, I want to have all this extra sex? And so on and so forth, right down the list. And there's that anything's good in moderation aspect to it. And I think Lewis points out, like, if Christians had to be teetotalers that can't drink alcohol, I'm out because I need my wine. Yeah, paraphrasing, but it's pretty close to what he said. And I just laughed when I read that because like that's true. Like anything, if you use it in a proper manner, and sometimes there's a little experimentation, it's different for everyone to figure out like how much alcohol is too much. And some people that tolerance is very low. Some people it's very high before it becomes a problem. But once it starts impacting your judgment or your morality as an individual, like now you know that that is you're past the limit. You're no longer living a Christian life.
Mm. I think it's funny, that explanation, because in two other sections of the book, he, almost combats his own argument there, by so when he talks about, like, our negative self is always kinda living there, right? And he describes it as like the rats, like the rats are always there.
Oh
um
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so but the other part of that is he talks about how when you're walking when you're trying to be more like Christ and you give yourself over, you take steps forward and you might get to a point where you feel like, "I'm good enough." Like, I'm never really gonna be perfect, but I'm good enough, and
Yeah.
you may just give in. Maybe you kick some of those bad habits, right? Like, maybe you don't smoke anymore, you stopped cursing, but you keep drinking, right? And you find that balance and you say, "Well, I've learned how to moderate my drinking, so it's never a problem anymore. And
Yeah.
I'm walking with Christ now, and I'm good enough. He forgives me. It's okay." And but I think the thing that but if you think that way and you're not consistently trying to get better, you lose your focus. Maybe you don't go to church
Hmm.
for a few months. Maybe you separate yourself a little bit from Christ. Maybe you have a bad week. Maybe you have one more drink than you normally have, and the
Hmm.
rats come out.
Yep.
And the
It,
rats come out.
you start losing sight of that focal point that was making you grow, or that was pushing you to grow. Like
Mhm.
to that point, like I find when I don't go into church, like when I stopped doing that in the last year or so, last 2 years rather, before I moved even, like things got worse. And like that's when I should have been going more. And I just couldn't bring myself to do it. But I've noticed that pattern. But there's also the aspect of like, if you stop praying, if you stop reading the Bible, and even if you're not Christian, right? If you stop reading whatever theological book or maybe philosophical book or self help book that has helped guide you towards being a better person, if you lose focus and stop thinking about those messages that have helped you get to the point you're at, you're going to regress. You're going to go stale, right? For lack of a better word. And this this actually is part of book 4, so I think we're going to skip down to there, even though I said we should probably go in order. Um, not all Christians are perfect. Some can appear worse than non-believers at times. How does Lewis approach this in the book? Do you remember?
So, I mean, he talks about it in the fact it's more complicated than just these are Christians and these are non-Christians, right? He talks
Mhm.
about the path that you walk to become a Christian. Maybe some of the people in the non-Christian part are walking the path and they're going to become Christian and they're already getting better. Maybe some of the people in the Christian group, they're not very far along on their path, so they're still kind of like these other
Or
people, right?
yeah, or
Eh,
they're worse than the other people.
Or they have they misunderstand maybe what it means to be
Mm.
to walk the path, and they think it's more like a checkbox of doing things than an actual, like, reflection on yourself to grow and to become better and to, be more like Christ on a day-to-day basis. We already talked about that person that feels like they're good enough. And look, I'm not trying to, like, be negative to that person because I there's plenty of times where, like, I kinda like, "Come on, man." Like, you give up so many things that you really love. Like, here's my thing, I drink so much coffee. I drink so much coffee, and this coffee has
Heathen.
it replaced other things that I used to drink that were worse for me, like alcohol. Like, typically, I would be drinking a scotch having this conversation, okay? And I don't anymore. I have alcohol or I have coffee, and I tell myself, it's good enough, like, it's good enough. But, deep down inside, I keep thinking, I probably shouldn't drink that much coffee and I need to do better and I want to do better. And I think as long as I continue that thought process, I'm going to move forward, right? Because I'm not going to let
Yeah,
it go. But there's the person that doesn't. And, maybe they start to go backwards, but they still
yeah,
consider themselves a Christian, So I think from the outside looking in, if you're trying to just make this simple, it's it's never going to be that simple. It's just not. Um and so I think Lewis does a good job of describing that in that circumstance.
yeah, yeah. I think the example from the book, and maybe I'm creating some of it, but like think about that Christian person that is like overly judgmental or gossipy. And if you're on the outside looking, it's like, I don't do that. And Christianity teaches against that. Well, that person is human, right? That person has flaws just like you do.
Mhm.
Uh, Maybe they're better at empathizing with other people, even if they are gossipy and judgmental, right? Than you are as an individual. And so there's always something to look for that you can grow and be more Christ-like. And as I mentioned a little bit earlier, like Christ surrounded himself. You read the New Testament, there's a lot of criminals involved, and he's talking to a lot of people that aren't Christian, that aren't following a Christian path even before it became like truly defined. The rich that are idolizing money, or the thieves, or the heathens, for a colloquial term, if you will, an amalgamation of criminals. And the point is Christianity accepts those people and it points them to right themselves towards God, to be better people. So if you come across a Christian who may be a worse individual than yourself, like objectively, not necessarily judgmentally, maybe it's because they're trying to be a better person and they're going out of their way to find a way to be better. And if it takes Christianity and not just some self help book, so be it.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis talks about that too, when he talks about the people that Christ goes out and seeks, and it's not easy. It's almost you trick yourself when you have things and you're in a good station in life to think that you're good because your life's a little bit easier. Like when he talks about the rats come out when stress happens. It's the person where you're not able to control the instinctual self-preservation inside you that leads you to maybe lash out or do something negative. But when you have a good station of life, nice things, property, power, you avoid a lot of those things. And so you may not even realize how difficult it is to control it or to be good. and you can separate yourself from a lot of the results of your actions simply by being away from them with your station in life. And so God goes out and he doesn't just bring those people to Christ, but he goes out and he finds all of those other people that are in the, I think he says the poor, the poor people basically. And he doesn't mean poor as in wealth, he means poor as in like circumstance,
Yeah.
negativity and whatnot. And he brings them to Christ too. And they're typically the ones that are willing to listen sooner because they've seen, you know, they need help. They're willing to
Yeah.
accept help. Where the other people are like, "Nah, I'm good, bro. I'm good. I got this." And the reality is your dad and your mom got this, and your grandpa and your grandmother got this, and they got it because they were Christ-like, most likely at some point in time, and they built this success for you. And now that you've separated yourself from
Hmm.
your old self, you don't understand your foundation. Now you're separating yourself from Christ, thinking that you are good, which we are all good and bad, and we can all be better regardless of our station in life. And when you forget this, I think that's kind of the problem. But I think I deviated a little bit from our conversation, but you get me.
No, it was good. I was gonna say, tell me more, but then you did tell me more, so I appreciated it. That was good. Uh, I think the next logical place to go here is like something we talked about a little bit earlier. Why can't we just call Jesus a great moral teacher? Like, how does his death like fix the moral problem uh, that Lewis is talking about in this book?
Mm, that's a very deep question, Craig. It's very deep.
You gotta
Very
sandwich
deep.
the deep between the shallow. Don't worry, I've got a great ending for this.
I mean, I think we kind of hit this already in the fact that he is since he is God, he is perfect and he leads with actions, not just with words. He's more than a teacher because he's the only guy that's able to walk the walk, right? We talked about the other moral teachers and they were great moral teachers too, but they are not God and they are not the best moral teacher, because Jesus is perfect. He can tell us how to do and what to do, and he can show us how to do and what to do. And I think Lewis talks about this a little bit is by, dying and being reborn and, ascending to heaven, he is showing us our path. Just like those everything else in life, if you have a this thing that's kind of pulling you in
Mm,
this direction, ends up being fulfilled by God. This too is there to show you what will happen if you follow Christ.
yeah, I like that answer.
Thank
But
you.
let me see if I can complexify it a little bit
Complexify it.
while also trying
Complexify.
to amalgafy.
Oh, I was gonna hit that. Dang.
Don't worry, I'm
Ugh,
gonna hit them all before you do. Don't tell me what you're gonna do prior to hitting the record button. um,
noted.
so I do agree with everything you just said. And I think that there's a distinction. Like Christians follow Christ because he's the Son of God. And we believe that because of what you said, like Easter. He died, he rose again, he transcended uh, what was. So let me see if I can complexify it. Uh, so, like, Christians are Christian because they follow Christ. Like, that's in the name itself. But when you pull it back, like Jesus led a life that we call perfect because we look at everything that Jesus did and said, this is the perfect way. This is the most moral way of approaching things. And we, as we said earlier, we kind of know that objective morality to be true because of gut instinct, because you get that feeling, that voice in the back of your head that says it. And the difference maker here is that a great moral teacher that died for what he believed while living a perfect life and then rose after death. And it's that fulfills the prophecies in the Bible, but also says that this individual wasn't just a mere man. There was
Mia.
something more. Yes, a mere man. It was something more. And it's that something more that fulfills the prophecy that solves humanity's sin problem in a way, right? It doesn't like absolve us of our sin directly. We have to ask for forgiveness and we have to repent. That's all part of the process. But it's that piece that makes Jesus more than just some other guy, some random guy. And his death is what signifies to anyone of Abrahamic religion uh, beliefs like, this is the Son of God. Here's the boat. Get on it. And if you miss that boat, well, you kind of miss the boat for the lack of for the lack of a
If you
better
miss the
term.
boat, you're gonna jump and fall in the ocean.
Or yeah, you miss the boat, then the helicopter comes to save you, and you say, "No, I'm good. Like God will save me." And then the helicopter goes away, and then you drown, and then God's like, "I sent you all these things to help you stay alive. You prayed, and I answered. What more do you want?"
Seriously. I think there's so much of that that happens in the world is people are expecting God to literally pick them up and deliver them where they're supposed to be as opposed to
on
listening
on
to
our
God.
time on our time frame, on our terms in a way that we want it. And actually, it's great that you brought this up because I didn't write this as a question. Like Lewis actually addresses it the same way that I address it, and I didn't realize this the first time reading it, but I've always thought of God as being external of the universe and as being external of time. So,
Yeah.
like, how can God hear all 8 billion prayers at once? Well, because we're all praying at once in time, but God can listen to them on his own time because he doesn't follow the same time we do. He's external of it. That's
Yeah.
how he can see what's in the future and we still have free will. That's how he can hear everything and answer it. And that's also why it's not answered instantaneously because God's not looking at time as a perspective. He's looking at it from a different point of view.
Yeah. I mean I've heard it before described that way. And it is also this, similar to way. So it's funny because he's outside of time and if you what is it? The theory of what's the guy's name? Well, think about it think about it this way. Think about it like a train in motion, okay? And like you're moving versus like walking outside the train, right? Like your feeling of
Oh,
motion.
the perspective, yeah.
Yeah, the perspective. Like you're moving really fast, but on the inside you're standing still, right?
Einstein, general relativity.
Right. That's what I was trying to get at. So, but I'm not a scientist. I'm just some guy. And I was like thinking about him and Oppenheimer for some reason. I didn't want to say the wrong thing. Um, Okay. But anyways, it's kinda like that. It's kinda like that, and, he's outside of this. Everything else is moving around him, and he is just or not around yeah, and he's there, and he can step into any point at any time and listen to
Mhm.
us and, maybe nudge somebody with goodwill here and there to make things happen, like getting the guy to fly the helicopter out and you're like, "No, God's got me. He's gonna swoop his hand down and pick me up." I always think about, like, the Simpsons episode, Homer the
Ah,
Heretic, right? The one of the best Simpsons episode ever is Homer the Heretic, okay? And he's, like, talking to God, and, he's, like, walking with God in his hand, and I'm just like, I don't know if that's how God works exactly." But it's such a great thought exercise about how
yeah.
we perceive this thing that is imperceivable to us. I think I'm gonna butcher it, but have you ever heard of Pete Holmes? He's like a comedian and he does but he's a believer, right? And he does a lot of like jokes about, Christianity. And he talks about people that are non-Christians and they're like, so you believe that talk about the Big Bang. You believe that something came from nothing. And and I'm not you gotta go here. I'm not gonna butcher it. I'll send you the videos after this, Craig. Maybe you can put them in the podcast, but there's some really great clips. There's one that I'm thinking of that I will not be able to get out and make it sound good, but you'll have to go listen to it. And you'll understand it once you do. But Pete Holmes, check it out.
Yeah, was I reading or I think I was listening to a podcast where there was a priest talking about various theological things. This has been a month of like, for whatever reason, multiple podcasts had theologians and priests on. So I've just kind of accepted that I'm getting shoved more back. I'm getting shoved towards Christian information. It's like, okay, maybe I should take this to as a sign. Like it's the helicopter. So one of the things that the podcaster and the guest were talking about was like these modern atheists like Richard Dawkins, Sam Harris, and it's like they're trying to lead good moral lives without belief in something that they have to have faith in. But when you actually start analyzing these things, there's a reason why a lot of scientists tend to be Christian, like, or at least believe in a higher power because of the miracles that they find while researching. It's like you can rationalize it all you want, but you're going to get to a point where you believe in something, where you have faith in something, whether that is time and evolution that solves all of the problems with how humans got to where we are, or whether that's, well, I guess it's mainly just that main thing of like time and faith in time, or some other fundamental law of science. And it's similar to the faith that we have as Christians. We just put that faith somewhere else, or we believe that the thing that we take for granted, like time or like gravity, was created by a being that knew what they were doing, and we thank them for it, as opposed to just being ungrateful towards the very thing that gave us our everything.
Yeah.
Yep.
I like it. I like it, Craig.
What's the next question?
I have no idea.
I
Is
have
it
no
this
idea
one?
either.
Is it this one? Uh, if Christian morality isn't just about rules or being nice, what its real three-dimensional goal?
Yeah.
All right. Well, give me an answer.
But I did. I don't remember. Now I don't even remember what the question was. Please
Ah.
repeat.
If Christian morality isn't just about rules and being nice or being nice, what's its real three-dimensional goal?
Okay. This is when he's talking about the dimensional God, the three-person God.
Mm-hmm. Which I thought was a
So
fantastic chapter, by the way.
yes, I might have to go back and reread it. I think he addresses
You're out
that
of time. The
perspective.
show's right now. You gotta give me an answer now. You can't go back and reread it. Come on, man. What are you doing to me?
Oh well, I was trying to derail while I was thinking. Because there is heresy around, like, is God three different individuals or is it one Godhead, so on and so forth. I think he covers it properly. But to answer your question, true morality, Christian morality, has like three major aims: harmony with people or among people, an amalgamation of people, if you will, inner harmony with ourselves, and something I said earlier, writing ourselves towards God as our ultimate purpose. And when I could also say writing ourselves towards being Christ-like. which is towards that perfect moral being. And just doing those things, those three things are accounting for the different dimensions of God as well. Like God the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost. The Holy Ghost would be our inner self. Um, God would be just God, the ultimate purpose. And harmony among people, I think, would be Christ in this analogy.
Yeah, but don't you think it would be uh ourself would be Christ and God would be harmony among people? Because wasn't he the man version of us?
Yeah, but it's talking about the inner self, which would be the Holy Ghost.
True. True.
I mean, I could be wrong too. Hey,
Well,
audience,
that's yeah.
there's this comment section. Tell us we're right. Tell us we're wrong. Tell Jeff he needs to get an amalgamation hat instead of just a Y435, an amalgamation of people. I'm gonna beat that horse a few more times.
Mm.
Uh, yeah. You have anything to add to that?
No, not really. No, that's pretty good. So, what does it mean to become more Christ-like as God intends? Is it really morality, or is it just following external rules? And I mean, this is an easy one. Come on, Greg.
It's morality. We've been talking about the entire time. Like once you relate morality and objective morality to being Christ-like or being like Christ, the Son of God, everything else should follow suit. It's actually pretty rational. It's pretty logical. And it cuts to the core, the mere aspect of
Yeah.
Christianity. And so you don't have to worry about like, I'm Lutheran or I'm Methodist or I'm non-denominational. That's all conversations. It's more or less a distraction from the reality that are you a believer in Christ? Are you baptized? And do you follow the morality given to you or provided to you, really?
So, okay, well, let me go back to this question real quick. So I had something, and I'm gonna lose it. So, I mean, I think, what are the external rules, right? Who writes the external rules? If the external rules are written by people, then how is following that going to create a moral, this moral world, right? I think the I think I think the overwhelming thing here is that, and I think this is what Jesus was teaching us, when he came back, is morality is complex. There's no one answer that can be given that can make you this moral person. This to become a moral being, to know the difference between right and wrong, to make the right decisions over the wrong decisions more times than not, you have to constantly be striving towards it. You have to
Hmm.
be thinking critically about all these different things. You need to be listening to others. You need to be having conversations with God, with yourself, with the people around you. You need to be able to talk about these things and figure out, how do we be one among each other, and how do we make ourselves better in each day. Um, there was an example that Lewis gave about talking about the parent who maybe dotes a little too much on their child when they're young, and then their child
Hmm.
grows up and they don't have the skill sets to be successful. And while it was really good when the child was young because it made things harmonious between the two, it turned out to be bad for the child in the long run. And who was it harmonious for most of all? The parent, right? Over the child. And so the parent
Hmm.
benefits more than the child, and the child has to suffer later because of it. Was that the moral thing to do? Like, sometimes, like, as a parent, it's like, I explained this to my daughters recently. Sometimes baby wants to touch the hot water, right? And
Hmm.
and as a parent, you slap that baby's hand away. You say, "No, don't touch the hot water. That burns." And then baby wants to
Hmm.
touch the hot water, and you're like, "No, baby, don't
Hmm.
touch the hot water." And eventually, as a parent, you just have to get to a point, sometimes in some circumstances, where you let baby touch that hot water, and baby learns that the hot water is hot. And then baby
Yep.
doesn't teach the touch of hot water in other situations that might be more dangerous because you are in this controlled situation where you're teaching and growing, and that is kind of what it is to be a parent.
Yeah.
And I think
Hands-on experience is better in all things. Um, and as a parent, you have to balance that because some things it's like, no, I'm not going to let you have hands-on experience with that, at least until you're ready, like driving
right,
a car.
right, yeah, you don't let your 9-year-old drive a car. Although I did let my 9-year-old sit on my lap and steer down the street the other day, but
Oh,
you know, but you
yeah, like driving when you're 9, I was may or may not have driven from the back seat somehow when I was like 10 to 12 because I told my dad he shouldn't be driving. That never happened. That never happened.
yeah, and so I think that like
The balance between yep.
there, yeah. So I mean, so I think like those external rules, what it is to be right and wrong, they are not as easy to determine, and that's why we have to have all those things. That's why Jesus was the moral teacher, not just a moral teacher. That's why he is God, and he's the one that talks the talk and walks the walk.
Yep,
Which
absolutely.
is parents, we're always failing to walk the walk, and then we feel guilty about it.
Do as I say, not as I do.
See, that's the other thing is like if you think about all the guilt that you feel on the things that you make a mistake on, right? Like we all feel
Mm,
that guilt. It is crushing. It's
crippling.
absolutely
Mhm.
crushing, okay? It's the hardest thing to get over is when you make a mistake and you know you've made a mistake and you wish you didn't do the wrong thing, but you know that you did, right? You know that Jesus is perfect because if he wasn't, that guilt would crush him because he would feel that
Mm.
for everybody, for everybody, right? And I think about it like X-Men. You remember Professor Xavier? He had the Cerebro where he could go in and
Oh,
he could feel everybody's pain, right? And
yeah.
like this was
Yeah, I remember that.
overwhelmingly like emotional experience for him. And it's like that is how God feels all the time. He's using this device to reach all these different people and he's not still touching everybody and he's a man and blah 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 blah. But God feels that. And then the only way to survive that and to continue on would be to be perfect and not have to feel that crippling guilt, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Couple questions left. I wanted to ask, I assume you did, based on what we've talked about. Did you skip the second faith chapter in
No,
the third book?
I did not
Why
skip a
not?
chapter. I I'm reading a book for a podcast. I
Oh.
figured I should read it because like how could I just skip a chapter and talk about it? Like I don't know. Like I don't know what's gonna be there. Here's the thing. Here's the thing that I know more than anything is the only one that knows everything is God. And if I
Mm.
pretend like I don't need whatever it is I'm supposed to be reading, then I've deluded myself into thinking that I'm God and I can know something that I don't know.
Well, the way Lewis worded
I
that
I know, I
was an
know.
amalgamation of words.
Arr!
Got him again. Amalgamation of words along the lines of like this is more philosophical, this is more abstract. If it doesn't make sense to you, skip it. It's not necessary. Like the first faith chapter is far more important. And there's a lot of those things that I'll go read just that chapter. Like that might be my favorite chapter just for that alone. But anywho, um last legitimate question. Why is becoming Christian no, why is becoming Christian why does that mean being remade to share God's own life and not just improving ourselves?
So he Lewis describes this well, talking about how, you can have a field of grass and you can cut the grass, but it's still going to grow back grass, right? If you want that field to be wheat, you're going to have to dig it up and reseed. And that's essentially what we have to do with ourselves if we want to be more Christ-like, because you have to dig up the things that make you do the bad things that you do. You need to understand them. You need to
Hmm.
reflect on them. You need to dig them up, pull them out, pull the weeds out, if you will, and reseed with something clean like wheat. Yeah, so I think Lewis said it very well.
And I think you said it very well as well. So
Mm,
my answer is
mm,
your answer.
merely.
So do you have any standout lines?
I do. I have a lot actually, but I'm not going to go through all of them. But I'm going to read
Yeah,
this one.
yeah. Give me two.
No man knows how bad he is till he has tried very hard to be good. Oh,
Mm.
that I mean, as somebody that has walked this walk recently, man, that like, yeah, I feel that in my bones.
Yep. Yep.
All right, your turn though. I'm not going to go back to back. We have to alternate.
Oh, I did. I forgot to write one down.
You don't have a standout line?
I
Craig the quote master doesn't have a standout line?
So there's quite a few lines that I truly appreciate, but I think amalgamation's got to be my favorite. Um, Actually, I do think I've got one here. I can find it. So it's on page 185 to 186. And Lewis is talking about God and um, different people, right? And what he's saying is you and they are different organs intended to do different things. Me, you, everybody, right? And so on one hand, you have that. On the other, you're tempted not to bother about someone else's troubles because they're no business of yours, remembering that he is different from you and he is part of the same organism as you, because we're all one organism with humanity. And here's where my quote, here's where the line is, and it's actually two lines. If you forget that he belongs to the same organism as yourself, you will become an individualist. If you forget that he is a different organ from you, if you want to suppress differences and make people all alike, you will become a totalitarian. But a Christian must be neither individualist or totalitarian.
Hmm. I absolutely love that line. I marked that whole passage there, because it varies. I think God wants us to be Republicans because I think that's the mixture between the two things. Um,
Clearly libertarian.
Libertarian is way too much onto the individualist side, and
For every action,
it's
there's a reaction.
it's democratic republicanism, right? It's the democratic republic. It's the American. A lot of people say that it is a miracle that the American Revolution happened and the republic was founded. They say it was a miracle, right? A lot of people believe that God had a hand in making that true. Think about the Valley Forge and George Washington and what they
Oh,
suffered
yeah.
through. Like
Yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know. Okay, let me get you one of my lines here.
Yep. One last one.
I got two. But the great thing to remember is that though our feelings come and go, his love for us does not. And I think that's something that we should always remember when we're thinking about God.
As Soren Kierkegaard puts it, the eternal wellspring of love.
If you want joy, power, peace, eternal life, you must get close to or even into the thing that has them.
Yeah. Man,
Bam.
now I want to read Works of Love by Soren Kierkegaard.
Well, it's not on the list. What is on the list, Craig?
One
You
last
see how I
question about the
segued?
book.
Oh, bummer. You ruined my segue. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm going to ruin it because I have an amalgamation of things I want to talk about still. Last one. Last one. Um, aren't we all just eggs, Jeff? I love how towards the end of the book, you hit all these deeper topics, and then it's just like, we're basically just eggs. Like, you're just an egg trying to be hatched, trying to do right.
Trying really hard. I did a
Yep.
great segue and it was just scrapped. Somebody went out of order. You should have got that in
Speaking
before the
of
standout
scrap,
lines.
so sometimes you could take scrap and make it something good. And the next book is
an amalgamation of that.
an amalgamation of information about motorcycle maintenance.
Really?
It's called Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. It's
That's
not
the next book?
philosophy. Yeah, it's the
It's
next
not
book.
philosophy?
It's not philosophy. It's
It's
let
mechanical
me
maintenance? Is it an
and how it
instruction
relates.
manual?
I have something for this. It's a narrative that follows a father and son's motorcycle journey across America, interwoven with reflections on quality, reason, and the reconciliation of technology with human values, which is very prescient given today's AI boom. Persig explores a metaphysical quality that transcends science and art, grappling with personal and societal meaning.
Mm.
If I'm
Mm.
not mistaken, you recommended this book when we built that
I
list years ago.
well, actually, my brother recommended this book to me, and he has read this book, and he doesn't read a lot of books, so I feel it necessary of me to read one of the books that he's read, and he's recommended to me because I've recommended a lot to him. I recommend a lot of books to a lot of people because I'm a crazy person who reads a ridiculous amount of books, and, if I want him to read the books I read, I'm going to have to read the books he reads. I learned that from that guy that we were talking about all episode in trying to walk the walk. But it's really hard because there's so many other
So,
people than there are of me.
so what I'm hearing is there's an amalgamation of people that need to listen to what you have to say, or what books you recommend.
I mean, I don't know about an amalgamation. Maybe a
A
normal word that a
confederation?
normal person would say.
A diaspora?
Oh my gosh. I got a vocabulary app on my phone recently so I could learn weird words so I could like combat you. Let me supercilious. Ooh, that's a good one. Behaving or looking as though one thinks they are superior to others. When you use words like amalgamation, you are acting supercilious.
No, I just assume everyone understands the word or can look it up.
Ah, assuming. What
Yeah,
do you know what Steve,
never assume in geometry.
do you know do you know what Steven Seagal in I think it was Under Siege 2 said about assuming?
It's probably something similar to the adage, but let me hear it.
No, tell me what the adage is cuz I think that's a good one too.
Never assume it makes a ass out of me and you.
Yeah. His was so much better. It was assumption is the greatest of all F-ups. It's like one of my favorite lines from movie history.
Okay.
I honestly don't even remember what movie it came from. I know that when I was a kid in my grandfather's basement, I watched so many Steven Seagal movies, but I don't think I can remember any of them, but I still remember that line from that movie.
All right. All right.
Whatever
Well,
movie it was.
if you know, let us know in the comments below.
Yeah, that would be nice. All right, are we out of here, Greg? Are we done?
I
Do you
think
have
we're
any more
done.
surprise egg questions for me?
No.
All right. Well, this has been an amalgamation of a show.
Oh, he got me. He got one in. Well played. Well played.
Well, that's all we have for now. Let us know in the comments what stuck out the most to you. We'd love to hear from you.
And for those tuning in on Spotify and Substack, please like and share.
For those on YouTube, kindly give us a thumbs up.
And you can check out the Substack version of this podcast for older episodes and future books we're looking at reading together. And you can find all links for What the Book at craigtstewart.com. With all that said, have a good one, folks.
Peace and love.